The title of this next session is Flipping Brilliant.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. And the keen-eyed amongst you will see that I'm definitely not Jane Burns, and I'm her avatar for today. And normally you would choose an avatar, wouldn't you, that looks better than you. But this is an exception to today. Jane seriously couldn't be here because her mother is ill, was taken to hospital last night, and so obviously she needs to be with her. And rather than cancelling this, I volunteered to do this talk. My qualifications are that I was a lecturer for many years, and I used to flip my classroom before the term was invented. So, and I think, you know, there is something about someone else stepping in to do this, because what I'm going to talk about and what Jane wanted to tell you about was really the principle, the practical parts of trying to flip a lecture. And so if I can talk about it, which I hope I can, then anyone can do this. So Jane is a senior lecturer and senior teaching fellow in marketing. And she comes from an IT background. So she worked in technology companies for ages, and she was able to bring her experiences into marketing and also into the way that she teaches. So the aim of what she was trying to do, what she did, was to flip the classroom and for students to watch recorded lectures, which then had sort of various pause points along them and questions for them to answer and to reflect on. And the actual time that they were face-to-face, the students and Jane, at that time was dedicated to higher level activities, the sorts of activities that are difficult to do individually, the more discursive types of activity. And it was within sort of like the face-to-face meetings that it was rather than content delivery, it was something far more important. It was the questioning, it was trying to reflect, it was trying to understand the students' understanding of the material. So this was her original aim. And there were various drivers for this. First of all, the module in which she taught was a first-year undergraduate module, and this was delivered down the road, whichever direction, at University College London. And it was a marketing 101, apparently, introduction to marketing. And the students who are on this module are extremely bright, in that they're all high achievers because it's UCL, because UCL is fairly high up in the league tables. These are students who have 3 A's, you sort of get in with 3 A's. Because they're fairly bright, they're also extremely demanding, and they want more, and they're hungry to learn more. And also, there's lots of international students as well, who have a slightly different approach to learning than homegrown students, and they're eager to use their time here. The types of students who did this module, where the lectures were all flipped, had mixed discipline backgrounds. So you can imagine it wasn't just marketing students, but it was students who were doing history majors and all sorts of things. Although there were some marketing people there. And a major driver for this was that UCL was built quite a time ago, didn't expect the sorts of numbers that you have at universities now. A lot of the lecture rooms that she had available to her only had space for 80 people, so nothing like this. And so everyone was sort of like packed in. And so, like using the time when they were face-to-face for something more than content delivery was one of her major aims. She used a book by Pearson Education called Marketing's Essentials of Marketing, and there was a change in this version, and it was like all the planets lining up, all the ducks sort of like starting to go in a row, for her to try something new. So, and another planet lining up was the fact that she was successful in getting a series of grants and support. So from UCL itself, she got a Teaching and Learning Innovation Grant last year and an e-learning development grant. From the Higher Education Academy, she got a grant Changing the Learning Landscape. As an aside, in my previous job I worked for the HEA and I was leading up Changing the Learning Landscape, so I was like an auditor this, but that was before I knew her, so it was all proper, it's all done properly. And the book that she was using, the Pearson book, came as an electronic version, a marketing lab. And it was part of that pilot that she was able to use free of charge. And then we sort of like worked through how the resource was used with everything else that she was using. So part of this jigsaw was that she wanted to use things that were at the college or easily accessible. And so there was my marketing lab, which was made available. She wanted to do a willingness to do flipped lectures. There was echo and lecture tools, which captured lectures and then made them available to the students. So she was able to record some lectures. The students didn't have to turn up. There's a student itself, student-centred learning. Moodle, it was fairly new. And Moodle had things like workbooks and groups and conditional releases. And for those of you who don't know conditional releases, you've got to achieve an exercise at a particular level before you can, before the next is released. And so, there were a whole load of things that all came together. And Jane wanted me to make sure that, I said, I told you that students were very much involved in the development of this new module where things were flipped. And there were 6 undergraduate students, and they were employed over the summer in order to integrate the material from my marketing lab into Moodle. So it all sort of looked as though it came from the same stable, and students weren't having to dart around from one base to another. And within Moodle itself, I'm not quite sure how much you can see of this, but at the top are all the tabs. So when the students started, they had access to this, and then they could see week by week the different aspects of marketing that were coming up. And then for week 1, the introduction, they had to complete a survey how things were going, and this was a week by week assessment of how the students were feeling about the course. So it wasn't one of these things where it was a module evaluation right at the end where the students tell you all the things that they didn't like, and it's far too late for you to do anything about it. This was almost contemporaneous in that week by week they were able to give some feedback, and Jane was able to address those issues if she could. And then, again, I don't know how much you can see, but there's week 1 preparation, and underneath it, it looks as though there's 2 similar things, just copied and pasted. It occurs of copy and paste, where you just sort of like, she forgot to change one thing, but it isn't that. What it is that it's 2 releases, and that she said to students, I want you to do this before the next activity. If you do this before the next activity, then you are rewarded somehow, which I'll tell you about. And if students did that within a certain amount of time, they got a reward, and also they had material released early to them. If students decided, I'm going to do this at the last minute, just before I do the next session, then they had to click the second part, because the first, then the link disappeared after the first week. And they had access to the same materials, but they weren't rewarded in any way. And similarly with the lecture material and things like that. And this is the resource you use, this essential marketing within my marketing lab. And this is usually available as a standalone resource, but she wanted to integrate it within Moodle. And so students were able to see something like this, where it's sort of chapter, number, study plan, and work their way through this with a little checklist. And as they went through that, then various things were marked as viewed, very similar to many of the other resources that we've seen. So in order to get students, the fear of many lecturers is that if you say to students, I want you to study something at home, and next week we'll discuss it. I mean, all lecturers would think the students are not going to do that at all. they're going to just turn up to the next lecture without looking. And the reason why a lot of people lecture is that because of that fear, they want to make sure that they've covered the material by lecturing at them. So there needs to be some sort of carrot and stick, unfortunately, to make sure that the students are working. And I think this is very important, that there was a weekly task list. If you ask students to go away and study, they don't know what to study. They need some sort of framework in order to help them. And there were various activities which were linked to the online lecture. And if they saw the lecture at home at a particular time, and they submitted an activity, it was almost like taking register. So they had actually viewed it. The face-to-face meetings were compulsory, so the seminar attendance was compulsory. There was a weekly test for credit. She said that she had to chase some non-contributors. Frequent updates. She also had a service called Skype Me, where between certain times she was available. She was by the computer with Skype sort of running, and anyone could Skype her. And she thought this was quite a major development. But the students went, no, this isn't extraordinary, even though no one else had offered that. So I think it's difficult to impress students with sort of anything electronic nowadays. But for her, it was a major thing. Badges, I'll talk about very briefly because there's not much time. Small prizes and things like that she was giving away. These open badges, unfortunately, there isn't that much time to talk about this. But essentially, students got badges for early engagement in the learning materials as an incentive, and talk about this for ages, but just to say that. And this is a leaderboard. I've obviously removed the names of the students there, but this is a leaderboard. So week by week, students could have a look at this and think, where am I on this board? And the sorts of so there's a Gaussian distribution, a normal distribution of students' attitudes and students' behaviours to anything. And as usual, you had people at the top of the list who were very eager to collect everything that was made available to them. So they wanted to collect these badges and they wanted to excel. And then you had all the people at the other end of the Gaussian curve that sort of like, whatever you did, they would not engage, and they were badges. What's that? It's below me, and they didn't. And then you have the rest of the population, and so looking at that, you could jockey to see where you were. So just give you another couple of minutes, then I better stop. So some student responses. It's a very interesting module, and I'm enthralled. I'm surprised they used that word enthralled. I don't think I've heard a student use enthralled before, so that's really good. By what I've learned so far, looking forward to future lessons, so that's really good. So far, I think the course has been interesting and very well organised. I think it's useful to have assigned readings, quizzes, and all, because it helps me remember. So, quite positive. The other end, obviously, there are students who voice some concerns, and the main one is the one that we often mention, that students are paying more for their courses, and they're looking upon it as a commodity. And so, if you pay for something, you expect to see someone there, rather than go home and study. I'll give you the resources, I'll do a whole lot of things for you, but it's left up to you. They almost want, I'm paying for this, I want to see someone there. It wasn't a prevalent opinion, but it was voiced by a few. And there's a lot more that James written, but perhaps I've been told to keep it fairly short. The workload implications. It's always great to introduce a new idea, a new approach, and if it saves you, if it doesn't save you any time, and in fact it increases your workload, then you've got to weigh up the cost benefits of it. But Jane said that it was reasonable. This was the first time that she tried it. There was much rethinking and restructuring of the resources to fit into this scheme. And there is the business of the online resources as well to develop them de novo. It will take ages. So to actually get them all in a package, as she did, greatly helped. And being responsive to a changing situation at short notice. This was evolving as the students were learning a new way of teaching and learning, and therefore she had to evolve as well. She had to adapt. And she said that at the very first, she didn't know this was working until the very first deadline for the first assignment. And, it was like a midnight deadline. And she said that she was actually there, sort of biting her nails, looking at the computer to see if anyone was going to submit anything by that deadline. And they did. And, it came as, as great encouragement to her. And there's, just to finish, I hate things just flashing in front of me when I see a presentation, but the bit that I'm involved in this project, right at the end, looking at the analytics. So I'm looking at student behaviour within the system and seeing, like how much time they spend, matching the time spent in the resource with their performance, and hopefully come up with some sort of predictive chart. So we could show students in the future, and we could say, on past performance, on past evidence rather, those students who spent this amount of time at this stage of the module got this sort of mark. And if it's a very low amount of time, and it's very early on, they're likely to fail. And it's almost like a risk register. So so they can. It's not guaranteeing that they're going to fail, obviously, or pass, depending on which way you look at it. But at least it gives them some idea. It says, here are the facts, and there's a probability. And so that's what I'm working with her on, is seeing how we can model all this analytics. Thank you very much for your patience.